Socialism is the scare word they have hurled at every advance the people have made in the last 20 years. Socialism is what they call public power. Socialism is what they call Social Security. Socialism is what they call farm price supports. Socialism is what they call bank deposit insurance. Socialism is what they call the growth of free and independent labor organizations. Socialism is their name for almost anything that helps all the people.
So let me say this as clearly as I possibly can. What we're not going to do is allow anyone to convince us that being able to see a doctor without needing to take out a second mortgage when you can barely afford the first one is at all normal in any way. That refusing to be a slave to a student loan you were told to get just to get a job that lets you spend the next 20 years paying back the student loan you were told to get isn't crazy. What we're not going to do is fall for this red scare. Communism is coming to destroy your life. Trust the people who tell you the affordability crisis is a made-up hoax bullshit ever again. We've done this before. And it gave birth to one of the most destructive presidents this country has ever seen. Fuck Ronald Reagan and fuck Donald Trump. Two destructive forces of nature cut from the same cloth, one of whom has pushed this country to the brink of collapsing our democracy while he and his family make more money than any one individual should ever have. But, to quote one of my favorite movies, there is a storm coming, Mr. Wayne. From FDR's New Deal to Bernie Sanders to AOC to Zohran Mamdani, there is a movement in American politics centered around the radical idea that working people deserve more than a life that they just survive. We all deserve a life we can actually live, a life that we can enjoy without needless, crippling debt or hunger or fear of being gunned down by our government or the pain of not being able to see a doctor simply because we don't have enough of the magic paper. The rise of the Democratic Socialists of America is a response to Americans waking the fuck up and realizing that not only is there a better way to build a society, but it's going to be up to us to do it. This is a fight that pits the many against the money. Forget left versus right. This is the 99% versus the 1%. And I know they've convinced us all that they're more important than any of us simply because they have more of that special paper with dead slave owners on it. And speaking of that, allow me to take a quick tangent. Some of these MAGA incels really want to argue that Donald Trump and his band of fairy men aren't racist. Are you aware that Harriet Tubman was supposed to be added to the $20 bill? Obama announced this in 2016, only for Trump to pull the plug on the project when he was elected president later that year. And President Biden restarted the project during his term, only for Trump to pull the plug again earlier this month. Give me one legitimate reason why one of the most influential, impactful, and important people in American history has been denied representation on the magic piece of paper we claim is so important. I'll wait. Go ahead. Okay, I won't really wait. We got other stuff to talk about, but you get the point. Now, I want to focus on Mayor Mamdani for a minute. If you listen to him speak at length, you'll pick up on something that I think is the driving force behind how he's been able to have the kinds of success he's had in such a short amount of time. I'll let him tell you himself.
I think that sometimes the characterization of the difference between governing and campaigning is given as a justification for compromise. It's given as a justification for the abandonment of what you ran on. And I am never going to say that this work is easy or it's straightforward. It's incredibly difficult. However, there is a way to deliver on what you ran on. And it will mean that you have to push. It will mean that you will receive many a no and you have to ask why. And it will also mean inheriting long-standing city policies that the closer you look at them, the more you realize there isn't much that this is actually grounded in, other than the fact that it's been done again and again and again. The more you're in politics, the more you're told this is just simply how it is. And to me, I just never think that's a good enough answer.
Now, I agree with Mayor Mamdani, and yet we're told over and over again that he's radical, that his policies or his desire to help others, his will to put working class Americans first is somehow a negative. That dude. Let's take a quick look at what he's been able to accomplish in just 7 months. He's helped secure a $1.2 billion state-funded 2-K universal childcare program, which provides full-day childcare for 2-year-olds in high-needs districts at no cost to their parents. He's won tens of millions of dollars back for tenants and workers from bad landlords and shady corporations. He's fixed over 165,000 potholes. He's launched the city's first Office of Community Safety, which focuses on providing mental health and well-being support to people in need, which allows the New York City Police Department to respond to calls they actually need to. Oh, and speaking of crime, New York City is currently experiencing the lowest number of murders and shootings in city history. And that's not even close to everything. Mayor Mamdani and his team is showing America what it can look like when a politician actually tries to make our lives better. You know, the thing we elected them to do. So that leads me to something that's really been grinding my gears lately. Why the fuck are establishment Democrats trying their hardest to destroy DSA candidates?
You know, these are the kind of candidates that Bernie keeps pushing. Look at the kinds of train wrecks that have been elected in New York as well, too.
The bill denouncing the horrors of socialism passed in a bipartisan vote of 327 to 86. All Republicans and 109 Democrats voted in favor of the measure. 13 Democrats voted present.
You took Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries out to dinner and said, what do you feel? How do you feel about having these socialist nominees? They would say, off the record, Mark? And I'd say yes. And they'd say, this is an effing disaster. We're going to have to play dodgeball the entire time for the next 100 days to try not to let these socialists and alleged communists kill our chances from coast to coast.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me be very, very clear. If the Democratic Party becomes the likes of Zohran Mamdani, who, by the way, I like, not trying to throw any shade on him or anything like that, but if the Democratic Party becomes him, you have no chance. You have no chance on a national basis in terms of the presidency. In Senate seats in the House, you have no chance. You have no chance. I want to be very, very clear about that. You might have a Democratic Socialist sprinkled here and there, but that ain't what America is. America's about capitalism. America's about dollars and cents. America's about an economy, a flourishing economy. Okay? And you know what it's not about? Free stuff.
Oh, bruh, if there is one clip that accurately showcases how much of an idiot Stephen A. Smith is, it's that last one. America is about capitalism. America is not about free stuff. This is why. This is exactly why Democrat socialists face an uphill battle. Because millions of people, just like Stephen A. Smith, have been brainwashed into thinking our government providing services paid for by our tax dollars is somehow free stuff. Does the fire department send you a bill after saving your house from burning down? What about the cop who does a wellness check on your sick mother who you couldn't get a hold of for a couple of days? Are they standing there with their hand out waiting for you to slide them a couple of ducats? Or what about the teacher who stayed 20 minutes late because your kid didn't understand their multiplication tables and asked for a little bit of help? Anybody handing you a bill for that? No. No, of course not. Because none of that is free stuff. We've already paid for it. That's the whole point of taxes. We collectively pool our money together so when your mother's not answering her phone or your house is on fire or your kid needs a little bit of extra help, nobody's worrying if you can afford it. We just take care of each other as best as we can. But see, these systems were designed long before lobbyists and corporate money turned our government into a pay-for-play house of cards that leaves very little incentive for politicians to act for the public good. But according to the Supreme Court, giving millions of dollars to influence an election is considered free speech. That's fucking crazy. Thanks to Citizens United, billionaires and corporations don't need to bribe a politician in some shady backroom deal anymore. Now they get to do it just right out in the open. And it's all completely legal. And Democratic Socialists all over the country are running to get corporate money out of politics, which brings me back to my main point. Why do establishment Democrats seem to absolutely hate Democratic Socialists so much? Because Democrats don't actually want anything to change. They're fine fighting for the illusion of change, having a 1 or 2 seat majority, flipping back and forth between the two parties every few elections, just so both sides can keep the status quo. To what I'm sure makes Stephen A. Smith blow his load, allow corporations to dictate. the direction of America. The DSA offers something different. Like FDR's New Deal, the DSA puts the physical and mental well-being of the working class over corporate profits. They're making the argument that your worth isn't measured by what you can afford. It's measured by the fact that you're a human being who deserves to live, not simply just survive. And that's the actual threat. Not the word socialist, not the boogeyman they're trying to build out of it. The threat is a working proof of concept sitting right there in New York City for every single American to see that says the status quo was a choice all along. And we can choose to do something else. The DSA isn't perfect. No political party or organization ever will be. But to believe that there isn't another choice we can make to help improve our lives is exactly why the establishment Democrats and Republicans alike want you to be so afraid of democratic socialists. And we won't fall for it. Not again.